My younger brother's lie changed our family forever. My younger brother told a lie that seemed harmless at first. But as the lie grew bigger and bigger, it damaged trust, created family drama, and nearly destroyed our relationship. My name is Ethan, and I have a younger brother named Jake. Growing up, Jake was always the charming one. He could talk his way out of almost any situation. If he forgot his homework, he had an excuse. If he broke something, somehow someone else got blamed. Everyone laughed about it because most of the time the lies were small. At least that's what we thought. I was the older brother. I was quieter and more serious. Our parents often trusted me to look after Jake. For years, everything seemed normal. Then one lie changed everything. It started on a Friday evening. Jake came home unusually excited. He burst through the front door carrying shopping bags. New shoes. New clothes. A new phone. Even a designer watch. My mother stared at him. "Where did you get all this?" Jake smiled. "I got a bonus from work." My father looked impressed. "That's great." Something felt wrong. Jake had only been working at his new job for 3 months. The amount he spent looked far larger than any bonus he should have received. Still, nobody questioned him. Except me. Later that night I knocked on his bedroom door. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How much was that bonus?" He hesitated. Then he gave me a number. It sounded ridiculous. "Seriously?" "Yep." I looked at him carefully. "You're lying." His smile disappeared. For once, maybe I'm not. I wanted to believe him. So I dropped the subject. Over the next few weeks, things became stranger. Jake kept spending money. More clothes. More electronics. More expensive dinners. Our parents were proud. They thought he was succeeding. I wasn't so sure. One afternoon, I visited him unexpectedly. His apartment looked different. There were unopened bills everywhere. Credit card statements covered the kitchen table. The moment he saw me, he quickly gathered them up. "What are you doing here?" I looked at the papers. "What are those?" "Nothing." That answer told me everything. A few days later, the truth started coming out. The company where Jake worked had never given him a bonus. Not even close. In fact, he was deeply in debt. The money came from multiple credit cards. The expensive lifestyle was completely fake. And the lie was only beginning. Because Jake hadn't just lied to our parents. He had lied to everyone. Friends. Relatives. Co-workers. Even his girlfriend. Each lie created another lie. Each story became harder to maintain. Soon the entire situation was spiraling out of control. One evening, our parents discovered a collection notice in the mail. The room went silent. My father read the letter twice. Then 3 times. Finally he looked at Jake. "What is this?" Jake's face turned pale. Nobody spoke. The truth had finally arrived. And there was nowhere left to hide. The collection notice sat on the kitchen table. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. My father stared at Jake. My mother looked confused. I already knew what was coming. Jake had been caught. There was no explanation left. No excuse. No way out. Finally, my father broke the silence. "Tell me the truth." Jake looked down at the floor. "It's not what it looks like." My father slammed his hand on the table. "For once, stop lying." The sound echoed through the room. I had never seen my father so angry. Jake looked terrified. For several seconds, nobody said anything. Then Jake finally spoke. The bonus wasn't real. My mother's eyes widened. What? I never got a bonus. The room became silent again. My father sat down slowly. Then where did the money come from? Jake swallowed hard. Credit cards. My mother covered her mouth. You bought all those things with borrowed money? Jake nodded. I could see disappointment spread across my father's face. But the worst part hadn't even come yet. My father picked up another letter. Then explain this. Jake looked at it. His face immediately turned pale. I knew something was wrong. Very wrong. What is it? My mother asked. Jake didn't answer. My father read the document. Then he looked up. This says you borrowed money from 3 different lenders. Nobody moved. Jake slowly sat down. The confident brother everyone knew had disappeared. For the first time, he looked completely broken. How much? I asked quietly. Jake hesitated. Then he gave us the number. The room exploded. What? My mother shouted. Are you serious? I asked. My father couldn't even speak. The debt was enormous. Far larger than any of us expected. Years of savings could disappear trying to fix it. My mother started crying. My father simply stared at the wall. Jake lowered his head. I'm sorry. But nobody was ready to hear apologies. Not yet. For months, he had been living a completely different life. The expensive clothes. The fancy restaurants. The new phone. The designer watch. None of it was real. It was all borrowed money. Money he didn't actually have. Then my father asked the question that mattered most. Why? Jake looked up. For the first time that night, tears appeared in his eyes. You wouldn't understand. Try us. Jake took a deep breath. Then he told us everything. When he started his new job, most of his co-workers seemed successful. They drove expensive cars. Wore expensive watches. Took luxury vacations. Every day he felt smaller. Every day he felt embarrassed. He started comparing himself to everyone around him. Soon he became obsessed with appearing successful. First it was a pair of expensive shoes. Then a watch. Then a phone. Then more and more purchases. Every time someone complimented him, it felt good. Every time people admired his lifestyle, he felt important. But eventually the truth became harder to hide. So he lied. The fake bonus was just one of many lies. As he spoke, the room grew quieter. For the first time, we weren't hearing excuses. We were hearing the truth. My mother wiped away tears. My father looked exhausted. I looked at my brother and realized something. He wasn't evil. He wasn't trying to hurt us. He was insecure. And those insecurities had slowly destroyed his judgment. But understanding the reason didn't erase the consequences. The debt was still there. The lies were still there. The trust was broken. My father stood up. You're going to fix this. Jake nodded. I know. No more lies. I know. No more pretending. Jake looked down. I know. That night nobody slept much. The house felt heavy. Everything had changed. The next morning, Jake surprised everyone. He started making phone calls. Lenders. Banks. Financial advisors. For the first time, he wasn't running away from the problem. He was facing it. The process wasn't easy. Some days he seemed hopeful. Other days he looked completely defeated. Months passed. The expensive clothes disappeared. The designer watch was sold. The newest phone was traded for a cheaper one. Slowly, piece by piece, he began rebuilding his life. But the hardest thing wasn't paying off debt. It was rebuilding trust. Trust takes years to build. Only seconds to break. And Jake had broken a lot of it. One evening, nearly a year later, he sat beside me on the porch. We watched the sunset in silence. Then he spoke. You know what the worst part was? What? The lies worked. I looked at him. What do you mean? For a while, everyone believed them. He stared into the distance. People treated me differently when they thought I was successful. I understood what he meant. Then he shook his head. But none of it mattered. What mattered? He smiled sadly. The people who cared about me before the lies. For the first time in a long time, I saw my real brother again. Not the fake successful version. Not the guy trying to impress everyone. Just Jake. The brother I grew up with. And that was worth more than any expensive car, phone, or watch he had ever bought. A year had passed since my younger brother Jake's biggest lies were exposed. Life had finally started to feel normal again. The endless arguments had stopped. The debt was getting smaller every month. Our parents were beginning to trust him again. Most importantly, Jake was becoming the person he always should have been. Honest. Responsible. Real. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He no longer bought expensive things he couldn't afford. He no longer pretended to live a perfect life. He simply worked hard and focused on fixing the damage he had caused. Watching him change made me proud. The old Jake had always been chasing approval. The new Jake seemed comfortable being himself. One Sunday afternoon our family gathered for lunch. Everything felt peaceful. Mom made her famous chicken dinner. Dad spent most of the afternoon telling old family stories. Jake laughed more than I had seen him laugh in years. For a moment, I thought the nightmare was finally over. But life had one last surprise waiting for us. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Jake. His voice sounded nervous. Ethan, can you come over? What happened? I need to talk to someone. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to his apartment. The moment I walked inside, I knew something was wrong. Jake looked pale. His hands were shaking. A phone sat on the table in front of him. What happened? I asked. Without speaking, he handed me the phone. There was a message on the screen. I read it twice. Then a third time. My stomach dropped. Someone from Jake's past had contacted him. Someone he hadn't spoken to in years. And they knew about a lie nobody else knew. I slowly looked up. What is this? Jake sat down heavily. It's the last thing I never told anyone. I felt a knot form in my stomach. After everything that had happened, I couldn't believe there was still another secret. Tell me. Jake stared at the floor. Several seconds passed. Then he finally spoke. Years ago, before the credit card debt, before the fake bonus, before all the expensive purchases, Jake had borrowed money from one of his closest friends. His friend's name was Daniel. At the time, Jake genuinely intended to pay him back. But then financial problems began. Instead of being honest, he delayed repayment. When Daniel asked about it, Jake made excuses. Then more excuses. Eventually he stopped answering messages altogether. The friendship ended. The debt remained. And now Daniel wanted answers. I sat quietly. What does he want? Jake looked miserable. He wants to meet. I nodded. Then meet him. Jake laughed nervously. You make it sound easy. It won't be easy. Then why do it? I looked directly at him. Because every time you've avoided a problem, it became worse. Jake knew I was right. For years he had hidden from consequences. Every lie had started because he was afraid to tell the truth. Every problem had grown because he refused to face it. The next day Jake called Daniel. They agreed to meet at a small coffee shop downtown. Jake asked me to come with him. Not to speak. Not to interfere. Just to be there. When we arrived, Daniel was already waiting. The tension was obvious. Years of frustration were written across his face. Jake sat down across from him. Neither man spoke at first. The silence felt uncomfortable. Finally Daniel leaned back. So. Jake nodded. So. Daniel shook his head. You disappeared. Jake looked down. I know. You ignored my calls. I know. You ignored my messages. I know. Daniel sighed heavily. For a moment, I thought the conversation might turn into a fight. Instead, Daniel simply looked tired. Not angry. Not hateful. Just disappointed. And somehow that seemed worse. Jake took a deep breath. I'm sorry. Daniel didn't respond. Jake continued. For nearly 20 minutes he explained everything. The debt. The lies. The insecurity. The pressure. The mistakes. For the first time, he told the complete truth. No excuses. No attempts to shift blame. No effort to make himself look better. Just honesty. When he finished, Daniel sat quietly. Then he spoke. You know what hurts most? Jake looked up. The money? Daniel shook his head. No. What then? Daniel's answer surprised everyone. You were my friend. The words hit hard. Much harder than shouting ever could. I would have understood if you were struggling, Daniel continued. I would have waited. Jake's eyes filled with tears. But instead you disappeared. The truth finally landed. The money had never been the real issue. The broken trust was. Jake nodded slowly. I know. Daniel stared at him. Then something unexpected happened. He smiled slightly. Not because everything was fixed. But because for the first time, Jake was taking responsibility. They spent another hour talking. By the end of the conversation, things weren't perfect. Years of damage couldn't disappear in a single afternoon. But there was hope. And sometimes hope is enough. When we left the coffee shop, Jake seemed lighter. As if a huge weight had finally been removed. I should have done that years ago. Probably. I was terrified. I laughed. You always are. He smiled. Yeah. Over the next several months, life continued improving. Jake paid back every dollar he owed Daniel. He continued reducing his remaining debt. His confidence grew stronger. But this time it was different. The confidence wasn't based on expensive possessions. It wasn't based on appearances. It wasn't based on pretending. It was based on honesty. One evening, our father invited us over for dinner. After everyone finished eating, Dad asked Jake to stay behind for a private conversation. The rest of us moved into the living room. 20 minutes later Jake joined us again. His eyes looked red. Mom immediately noticed. Are you okay? Jake smiled. Yeah. Later that night I asked him what happened. He laughed softly. Dad said he's proud of me. I smiled. That's good. Jake nodded. You know what's funny? What? A few years ago I thought people would be proud if I looked successful. I stayed quiet. But Dad isn't proud because I have money. He paused. He's proud because I stopped lying. That moment changed something inside him. For years Jake had measured success by the wrong things. Cars. Phones. Clothes. Status. Now he understood that character mattered more. The lesson had cost him years of pain. But he finally learned it. A year later, all of his debts were gone. Every loan was repaid. Every promise was fulfilled. The day he made the final payment, he called our family immediately. That evening we celebrated together. Nothing fancy. Just dinner and laughter. The type of evening Jake once would have considered boring. Now it meant everything to him. As we sat around the table, Mom raised her glass. Families make mistakes. Everyone nodded. Sometimes very big mistakes. Jake laughed. But family also means helping each other grow. The room became quiet. Because everyone knew exactly what she meant. Jake wasn't perfect. None of us were. But perfection was never the goal. Growth was. Today, when people meet my brother, they see a trustworthy person. They see someone dependable. Someone responsible. Someone honest. Most of them have no idea about the lies, the debt, or the mistakes. And that's okay. Because those mistakes no longer define him. What defines him is what he did afterward. He faced the truth. Accepted responsibility. And rebuilt his life one step at a time. If there's one lesson I learned from watching my brother's journey, it's this. A lie may seem easier in the moment. But the truth is always lighter to carry. And no amount of money, success, or attention is worth losing the trust of the people who care about you. In the end, Jake didn't become successful because he looked rich. He became successful because he became honest. And that made all the difference. Our team works hard every day to bring you the best manhwa recaps and Reddit stories of families. Creating these videos takes a lot of time, effort, and resources. If you enjoy our content, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and show your appreciation. Join the Noon Manhwa Recaps family and never miss a new story. We upload exciting manhwa recaps and engaging Reddit stories every day. Thank you.